Welcome to Almost Pro, the podcast that explores the stories of athletes and the people who walk alongside them. We know the path in sport is rarely linear and that success can take many different forms. Today's guest offers a really unique position. Joe Sclafani has lived the athlete experience playing Division I baseball at Dartmouth, where he set an Ivy League record before being drafted by the Houston Astros in 2012. He worked his way through the minor league system, reaching AAA and earning a major league spring training invite. Now he's the director of player development with the Toronto Blue Jays, overseeing one of the largest and most complex development systems in baseball. Joe is someone who connects athletes with the right people, the right support, and the right environment, and brings a deep understanding of how performance and people come together. Joe, welcome to Almost Pro.
Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here.
So pumped to have you here, Joe. Joe, we're going to go a little bit backwards to start with. So we're going to talk about where you are now. Can you talk to us a little bit about what day-to-day looks like for you in this role where, you're not just in a performance space like an athlete, but you're connecting people and systems and support functions together? What's your day look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the more gratifying things to do. I get to work with some pretty incredible people. So at the center of everything for us, it's my technical title is director of player development. So at the center of everything, it's player plans. How do we help them maximize their potential? There's a lot of moving pieces to that. So depending on time of year, spring training is its own animal. During the season, we're the only organization that has teams in 3 different countries. Dominican, our high A team is in Vancouver, and then a few others in the States. And I think our staff has grown a lot. And to your point earlier, it's connecting the dots for a lot of people. So at the end of the day, it's a couple 2 to 3 baseball goals for each player, and everything's centered towards that. But we have dietitians who support from their end. We have mental performance coaches who support from their end. Trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, on-field personnel. People who are much smarter than me who do biomech, R&D, and it's really trying to find any competitive advantage possible, because baseball is unique in the sense that we have a ton of the data is more advanced than some other sports, and every team has access to those. So it's really finding great people, bringing them in, and trying to put the right processes in place so that we can create as many big leaguers as possible so that they can realize their dreams.
Sounds so simple, Joe.
Yeah.
Sounds so simple. My gosh, I see so many moving parts, and that notion of trying to keep a strategic lens across really operational functions.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of moving parts at all times. We have a group in Toronto, obviously at the center of everything. It's our major league team winning. So everything we do in player development, it's to support that. It can take lots of different shapes. The draft is in the middle of the summer, and the trade deadline's right afterwards. So, some of the conversations throughout, we have some limitations in terms of how many players we can have domestically. So we have to make release decisions, roster decisions. When do we promote guys? Are we challenging them appropriately? Are the action plans that we've put together, are they working? You have to check, recheck, and just making sure we're showing up for them the best way we can. And that's in season. Off season's its own animal too.
What do you think sets you apart, though, for this role with you at the Blue Jays versus perhaps someone doing this role anywhere else? What do you bring?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it sets me apart much. I think I like to think that I'm doing everything I can to support guys like me. It's a dream, lifelong dream for a lot of kids. It's incredibly difficult. I think in the history of baseball, it's 3% of minor leaguers ever even get a cup of coffee in the big leagues. So the odds are really tough, and our job is just to help them, try to realize their potential, find every competitive advantage. I think one of the things that's unique a little bit to me is just the background with the school. I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to play professionally. I learned a ton from everybody along the way. I got to experience some really great cultures, different ways of thinking about things. And I think those experiences have really shaped the way that I approach the job. And I've sat in those shoes. I know how difficult it is when you haven't gotten a hit in 2 weeks. It feels like you can't find the strike zone. The world's ending. All your family at home is asking you. Every question they ask you is about baseball because it's so unique, right? All their other friends are doing, more standard jobs. How do you get through those things? And I think the fact that we had to grind, I had to grind with, and again, I was very fortunate. I had great support from my family, friends, really good teammates, coaches, everybody. It's trying to help cut through some of that in order to give them their best chance. Because recently we had, I think they condensed the minor leagues 3 or 4 years ago. So we used to have 300 players. Now it's 165 domestically. So those runways are incredibly short. So we have to try to find every opportunity we can to accelerate that process.
Yeah, Joe, it's an incredible position that you're currently holding, but you've also got an equally incredible journey on how you got to this position. If we look back at the beginning of your journey, you played not just baseball, but basketball also. How does that shape your path, and how did you get to that point where you were playing both sports?
Yeah. My dad was a college basketball player, so that was his passion. But baseball was always what I loved. It felt like a chore to go to the court, and my dad would ask me, "Have you worked out today?" I didn't enjoy that much. Baseball was different for me. I enjoyed the work every single day. Um, I would recommend every kid plays multiple sports. I think I moved better defensively on the baseball field because I played basketball. You just learn different movements. You learn how to see things in space, and it was a lot of fun. I got to meet different people on that end too, experience different things, and all of it really, really benefited me. And the competitive edge, ultra competitiveness, I think was probably my carrying trait. So getting to do that at a fairly high level in two sports was helpful.
Competitiveness does take you places, though. It helps.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Did you get that competitiveness from your dad? Because you also mentioned that, he had some pretty high expectations regarding sporting outcomes as well. How did that influence you?
Yeah. My dad will tell you he was tough on me as a kid, but it was because he believed in what I could do and what I could turn into. He never let me win in anything. It didn't matter. When I finally beat him one on one when I was like 12 or 13, I earned it. And it was so gratifying at that point that it was, you chase that feeling time after time. And baseball at the end of the day, it's so unique because it really is one on one in a lot of ways. But like you got to do your job, you got to win in your moments. And I broke it down to such a granular level where I was going to find a way to win each pitch. And if whatever I needed to do at that point, and it was definitely beneficial in the long run.
So when did you decide that it was going to be baseball, not basketball?
Yeah, I didn't play my senior year. I think we were fourth in the state in basketball my junior year, and I actually had more offers in basketball at that point in my life, and then baseball. But I was 5'9", and I weighed, I think, $150, and I had never really had time because the seasons were different. So I would just roll into the next one. Never really
Hmm.
had time to focus on lifting my body, doing those different things, training functional movement for baseball. And I had committed to Dartmouth, I think, a couple months beforehand, and I really wanted to give it everything I had because I had an opportunity to earn the starting job my freshman year, and I was gonna put that best foot forward, and that was the best way to do it for me.
Yeah. And best foot forward you did, right? So in your intro, we talked about your success in baseball. Put it in your own words. Let's talk about the climb and the period of climbing baseball.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the more uncomfortable things for me in terms of talking
Yeah.
about things that I've done on the field. But fortunate enough, when I went to Dartmouth, I started as a freshman, had a pretty good career, very fortunate to stay healthy, wound up being a good player, not only at the school, but also in the league. And I wound up getting drafted on a Tuesday, and then I graduated on a Saturday. So my parents were coming in on that Wednesday for graduation, and it was a whirlwind of emotions at that point, but um, incredible to be able to share with them. And then I started in short season, which was in Troy, New York. Played 70 games there. Then I went first off season to prepare for the first spring training, and then I started in Quad Cities, which is in Davenport, Iowa. I was there for a month, and then I went to Lancaster, California, which was high A. Finished the year there, had some success. After that season, I actually played out where you guys are in the ABL in Adelaide, and it was an incredible experience. I was 23, didn't know what to expect. Could not have enjoyed it more. I wish I could have stayed longer.
Yeah.
Um, and then rolled right into spring training in Corpus Christi, Texas, the following year, um, which was Double A. I was there for 2.5 months, I think, about half the season, and then went to Oklahoma City, which was Triple A. Um, and then after that, I went to the Arizona Fall League, which is a prestigious one in our industry. I was on the taxi squad and wound up earning a starting spot. I DH'd in the championship game. Went to big league, my first big league camp after that. And then I was in Fresno, California for AAA the entire year that season. And that fall, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to play for Team USA in the inaugural Premier 12 tournament, which was in Taiwan and Japan. So like when I say I was so fortunate in so many ways, like I got to experience some incredible things. And even though I didn't get over the hump and actually realize that dream, I would never trade it for anything.
Joe, that's so much movement. Is that normal?
Yeah, it's so there's less leagues now, so it's a little less, but yeah, it can be hectic, and we have some guys who will go up and down based on needs. But it's fairly traditional to go low A, high A, double A, triple A, and then you get to the big leagues.
I love how much every single step mattered, though. You just remembered that whole time, like every single step, you've got it. That's impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's because of the people I met. It's because the experiences I had. I took something away from all of it. I had a very fortunate to have a solid plan B, and so I did it because I loved it, and I wanted to outgrind people and outlast them, and I thought I could outcompete and get there. So I savored it every step of the way, and just because I didn't get there ultimately in the end, it was still well worth it.
You could tell.
Gosh,
That's
it's
awesome.
so incredible, Joe. We talk to a lot of athletes across a lot of sports, but I think you might be the first to have just taken us on an international tour with sport. Like that was
I'll take
impressive.
I never thought I was going to get to do that. And the last game I actually ever played, like official game, was in Mexico City. I was with the Astros and training. We played the Padres in Mexico City for a couple of days, and I got cut from big league camp on the plane ride home, and unfortunately got released a couple of days later. But it was a fun ride.
And on that release, often we talk to athletes about that transition moment, right? Where you know that things are shifting, you know that it's now time to contemplate what next for you. I've got this deep sense of you've had these compact years of being amongst a team, of changing teams. So you're obviously very, very adaptable and able to transition with other people in other environments really quickly and get on and do your job. You know what your job is, you're there to do it. But also the sense that you were losing that transiency, right? That where you're going across the globe and you don't know where you're going to be from one season to the next. The moment when all of it changed, how much of all of that was on top of you and how much were you just thinking about, I've got to do something else now?
Yeah, it hit you like a truck. That's a great question. It hit you like a truck. You're along for the ride, and there's always something in front of you to look forward to. And I think a lot of athletes are type A, and you look forward to the downtime a little bit, but after 3 or 4 weeks, you start to get the itch. It's like, all right, I'm supposed to be doing something. And so, I like to joke that I was a gypsy for part of my life,
Yeah.
a chunk of my life, um, and it was unsettling, I guess is the right way to put it. Just not knowing what was next. My friends that I went to school with had been established in their jobs for 4 or 5 years. Back then, we didn't make much as minor leaguers, so you made do in the off season. You worked odd jobs, um, and so I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But everything I had in my head that I would grind, I'd ride the buses until they told me to go home. I would outcompete people. It was disappointing, and it took a little while to reflect, but I had a great support system to help me get through it. And then I was ready for the next challenge. Looking forward to it.
Joe, you've mentioned that it often comes down to numbers and keeping the rosters really tight. How hard is that to accept when you feel like you said, you're putting in the work, giving it 100%? How hard is that to accept when you feel like you've done everything you can and everything right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always the way I approached it was I was going to earn it every day, and give me the opportunity until I show that I'm not good enough. Um, and it was challenging in a lot of ways. The unfortunate part of our game is, and I'm sure in every sport and every industry, um, some guys you have more investment in some guys than others, and unfortunately that means that like the teams are going to give those guys more of a chance. So the only time I played on opening day was for my short season, and a lot of the times I was not a priority to play often. Like guys would get injured, guys would move, I would get opportunities, and I was ready to take advantage of every opportunity when I had it. And that was the way I approached it every day. And I figured if I can keep doing that, I'm going to win people over. I'm going to try to make people around me better. And sooner or later, good things happen to people who do it the right way. And so I just approach it that way every day.
Yeah, such a phenomenal attitude. And I suppose, it served you well in the end, right? So you've had this moment where you've been dropped and you take the time then to work out, what does this mean? Or at least begin to process. I think it takes longer than a few weeks to work out what does it all mean. But you then got an offer. Is that right?
And now, time for a short break. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to join the Almost Pro community and stay up to date with the latest episodes and news. To find out more or to apply to be a guest, visit almostpropodcast.com today.
Yeah, yeah. So I was a little disenchanted with baseball at that point, just the way that my experience had made me feel. So I
Understandably.
was, yeah, I was, studying the commercial real estate, some finance jobs. I was looking for something different. I had
Right.
experienced it, and um, Jim Beattie, who had pitched in the big leagues, he went to Dartmouth. I knew it was him because his wife was the director of alumni relations, and I went to school with his daughter, and he obviously was around the program a lot. He had been a GM. He had my role previously. He'd done a lot of different things in the game. He was a pro scout with the Blue Jays. He called me, I want to say it was like 6 weeks after I'd gotten released, and my brain was already on, all right, what's next? And he said, we have this opportunity, a player development internship for the Blue Jays. Would you have any interest? Would you have any interest? I think you'd be pretty good at it. And I said, with all due respect, Jim, I have no interest in being part of the machine that kind of killed the love of the game for me for a little bit. Um, and he was great about it. He called me back a few days later and was persistent. And he said, look, the rest of that stuff will be there for, you know, this is for 3-4 months. The rest of that stuff will be there. The opportunities will be there. Um, just try it. And it was a fair argument. I couldn't really refute it. So I got in, I accepted that, and I got in, and it felt immediately different. And it was something I was excited to be a part of and wanted to contribute to.
What was the turning point in terms of, you say once you got in, but what helped you to see it differently? What were the things that you noticed early on?
Yeah, I mean, every athlete thinks they know the inner workings of what's going on. Armchair GM, armchair farm director, whatever. Um, and you know, um, my background, I was able to see things a little bit better than some of my teammates. But it was so fascinating to see all of the inner workings and everything, all the different variables that factored into decisions. And it was a different feel in the building. Like, it wasn't only just help players get better to realize their dreams. It was acknowledging, staff members have ambitions too, and you could feel the commitment to that, and like that was super exciting to me, and it was something that I wanted to contribute to, and hopefully, help others find that as well.
Judging by how quickly you've moved through the ranks of player development to your current position as director of player development, what do you do to contribute to making sure that every player that comes through, every player that you're interacting with is, feeling valued, you're getting the most out of them, and making sure that they don't feel like just a number of someone who was part of a big system and been lost as a number?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's challenging in a lot of different ways. One, find great people who care about the right things. Um, our organization has great leaders who set really good values, and so everybody we brought in was rowing the same way in the boat. And 230 players overall, and it's challenging at times. Everybody, they all have the same dream and they all want the same opportunities. It's just the unfortunate side of the business that's not realistic. The biggest thing for me was leveraging my experience and when I was playing. I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I said, like, what do I need to do to play more? If you don't think I'm a big leaguer yet, like, what do I need to do? I never really got a ton of direct answers, which used to frustrate me because my brain is rooted in logic, and I needed a target. So when I got to this side and talked to my original boss, I said, transparency, man. Like, this is not just their job; it's their life and it's their dream. Like, they might not like our answers all the time, but they can appreciate the fact that we're telling them the truth and they're not sitting in that gray area. Because baseball, our game is unique in that it's centered around failure, really. Um, so how can we find those little wins, and how can we give them realistic goals to hit or metrics to hit or, skills to develop, and just door open policy. Like, if you want to ask a question, you may not like my answer. So you better know that going in, but I'm going to tell you the truth, and you're never going to sit there and having to wonder why.
I love that you mentioned that because as athletes, I think universally just speaking directly, transparency, getting to the point, this is what we need to do. As athletes, we train to have an outcome, like you said, and that is such a worthwhile point mentioning for every single industry that athletes are employed in. That is a great way. There's going to be difficult conversations to have for sure, and you're definitely in a position where I would be thinking you'd be having a lot of difficult conversations on a pretty regular basis. What has the feedback been like in that approach that you've taken? Are players going, okay, yep, we have to have these conversations, but are they grateful for the fact that it is direct?
Yeah, I don't usually get it directly from them. I usually hear it through some back channeling, which is fine. Like I would rather cooler heads prevail or whatever. But um, I've gotten positive feedback on it. They definitely, some of them hate me in the moment. There's plenty of that. And I've actually run into players that I've released in the past over the last few years in different scenarios. And, they'll admit that, say, I hated your guts for that time, but they look back on it now and whatever they're doing in their lives, like they appreciated that candor and that transparency because they never had to wonder about what they needed to do and whether they thought they were getting a fair shake or not. They never had to guess. And I think ultimately everybody knows it might take a little longer for some, but at some point you're going to be able to reflect and know that they tried to do it the right way. They used the best information they had. They tried to give you the best opportunity.
Yeah, it's so true because it comes from intention, right? Your intention, as you've laid on the line for this entire recording, is to say, I want them to have the experiences that I was looking for as a player. And I feel now that I'm in a position of influence where I can give that to them. I think if it's not met in the moment of being received, it's probably because there's a whole pile of emotion in that situation for them. But when you get that feedback loop, it's so gratifying to hear that they've found the place where they understand the intent of the messaging you were delivering.
100%. And my favorite part is that some of them have told me like I try to use some of that in whatever they're doing for their professional life at this point, which is pretty special.
That's end to end impact. You're seeing it in what they're doing next.
Yeah, it's pretty special because those are there's some rough days and don't sleep very well. I go right back to the seat that I was in right back to when I got released in that seat every single
Yeah.
time. So don't usually sleep very well the night before, or usually afterwards either, because I know how that felt. I know they might not get another opportunity, and that dream might be over. Um, and so it's only happened a few times, but it has been pretty special when I've gotten it.
Yeah, and the fact that you can still remember it means they will too, right? So you want to handle
Mhm.
it with absolute care and caution.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You're the right man for the job. You're the right man for the job. So speaking of the job then, we're dealing with humans regularly and no two are the same. You've got hundreds of players and staff around you. You no doubt are moving between urgency and care and caution. Do you reach a point at the end of the day where you don't even want to decide what's for dinner?
Yes, decision fatigue is incredibly real,
Right.
and it'll wear you down quicker than anything else. And so, like, one of the things that was important to me was building a good team around me to take some of those, tough conversations or take off some of those things. Because at the end of the day, and I tell my group of leaders all the time, don't need you on the road for 3 weeks out of the month. Like that model is gone. That's what they used to do because
Mm,
I need 80 to 100% of your brain. And if you're watered down, like 30% doesn't do much for us. We all lose, including you and everybody that you're trying to interact with every day. So the decision fatigue is incredibly real. And I don't know that I've found a good way to deal with it yet. But it's a constant quest to try to figure that out and make sure that I'm almost at my best or whatever my peak is at that particular day as often as possible.
do you get downtime, Joe? Because you know, baseball as a sport, there's a lot going on in the season. There's so many games, but the off season is just as important. Do you get downtime and what does it look like?
Not really.
Yeah.
We joke about it. But there's so many things that are going on in the off season. We have to review our processes. How did things go? Let's
Yeah.
set goals for next year. We're constantly trying to refine to make sure we're doing the right things and giving our guys every opportunity to maximize their potential. So really, the only true downtime is probably the week before Christmas up until New Year's. I've gotten better about trying to find pockets here and there because I know the watered down version of me, and when I get burnt out, is doing nobody any good. So it's a constant battle.
Does that mean someone doing your job just has to love the game?
Yeah, if you don't love it, you don't stick around very long.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
only 30 of us, and a lot of the young kids that I talk to, everybody, it's like the role sounds great on paper, and it is. Like I'm very grateful. Like the peaks are incredibly gratifying for guys that might not have gotten there in a different org or different path, and definitely trying to be better about celebrating those victories. But there's just so much going on at all times.
Would you say you're a good boss?
You'd have to ask my people. I'd hope that that's what they'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got a deep compassion, Joe, and it absolutely comes through. It is a pleasure from where we sit. You know, both Laura and I have sporting lives, but we also have professional lives, and it is always nice to see the way that someone with a position of influence can blend the two. And I think you're doing it incredibly well from where we sit.
I appreciate you guys. It's always trying to get better, and just do what's right for everybody. We tell our players like we want you to succeed because if you guys do well, we all benefit. You know, there's no us versus them within this, um, and it's been pretty special getting to do it with some really high quality and high character people.
Yeah,
Well, the
phenomenal.
team would be your home in a sense. You're on the road majority of the year. That was going to be one of my questions is do you bother buying a house somewhere or do you just have little Oh, it's like 10 months of the year. It's a lot.
And also, what luggage do you use? Because it's obviously very good. And
Right.
I'm very good at packing a lot into a carry-on. I can tell you that. Because of the life I lived at, like as a player and never being in the same spot for a little while, it was nice to have roots to some degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, it keeps us busy. I mean, we joke there's never a dull day in PD because no matter how many good things are going on, there's lots of problems to solve. And we've tried to be better as a group at acknowledging the little victories because there's plenty that are coming in, but um, the problems to solve or the issues to help guys with, they can bog you down really quickly if you let them.
I'm curious with the amount of work that you do with the players and with the selections and with their growth overall, both on and off the field. Do you ever see yourself in those players?
Some of them, yeah, and a lot of them actually, just different pieces of it. But it's hard not to have an affinity for some of them who remind me of who I was and just the way they talk about things, the way they play the game. Um, you know, you try to fight for those guys, and we have a couple examples of players that fall into that category that wound up getting there, and cannot tell you it was a celebration. I mean, it's a celebration when we get any of our guys that make their debut and realize their dream, especially the homegrown ones. But for those ones in particular, it's hard to describe.
I love that. And then I guess the other question's a little tougher. It's on the flip side, but for the athletes that don't quite make it, is there anything that you wish that they had understood earlier?
Yes, many things. It depends on the guy, obviously, but the routines. I think the crux of it is don't take it for granted. It's much shorter than you think it is. Hopefully, a lot of them play for a long time. That's not the reality of this game. Even if you're good and you play in the big leagues for 3 years, which is outstanding and very accomplished, it's only 3 years, right? And then you're 29, 30 years old trying to find something else to do. Don't waste any days. Try to earn it every single day because the runways have gotten a lot shorter, a lot of these guys are so talented, and it's just disappointing in that scenario.
The reason I ask those questions is because as athletes, you spend your career right from the junior years building towards your goal. And a lot of the times we hear this term making it. From someone in your position, how do you define making it now? Having been through the experiences you've been through and from the position that you're in now.
It's a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. End of the day, the goal is to realize that dream, even if it's only for a day. But like I mentioned earlier, I think it's 3% of minor leaguers. I talk to my guys a lot, whether it's draft camp or first session for international guys. When you get together with former teammates or you run into guys that you played against, and names come up, nobody ever goes to performances. Nobody ever cares that that guy had 2 homers this day or he punched out 15. They immediately go to who they are. So what do you want your legacy to be? You're not only representing the org, you represent yourself, family. Are you going to do it the right way? And will people remember you for that? Because usually that's going to wind up setting you up for success in the future, whether it's in the game, whether it's in baseball or just in a different industry. There are a lot of life lessons to be learned from this game and having to go through these things, and doing it the right way. Hopefully we're providing them with the opportunity and the tools to be able to do that and set them up for future success moving forward.
Love that.
Come on. So good. So good, Joe. And because it changes, right? Making it changes in different seasons for us, different parts of life.
Back afterwards, and you miss the camaraderie, the opportunity to compete,
So true.
and you can run yourself right out of the scenario if you don't do things the right way or you don't take it seriously. So
Yeah, it's so true. Joe, you have opened so many important conversations throughout the course of this discussion. We are phenomenally grateful for everything you've brought to the table. I said to you in an email that we know we're in the hands of a legend in having you with us here, and you refuted that, and we don't accept your refute. So the position still stands. We're so grateful that you've made the time for this discussion. We're so grateful for the wisdom that you've been able to impart. But I think more than anything, we're grateful that you've moved through your journey to go past that moment of saying, I'm not going to be a part of the machine that created this pause in my life, only to say, all right, I'll give it a crack. And you have, and you've done an exceptional job of it. But more than anything, there are people in households where your name's being mentioned so favorably because of the way that you shaped their path. And that's special.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys having me on. Let me tell part of my story. It's fun and gratifying to be able to try to make the experience a little bit different, hopefully better than mine.
So good, Joe. And while we would love to continue to have this conversation with you, we have a commitment at the end of each of our episodes where we force our guests into a game that it will either make you incredibly uncomfortable or will force you to choose something, or as Laura likes to call it, this, that, or everything in between. We ask you to choose between two possible answers. It's the answer that comes to mind first for you that you most relate to. But I will say, we have to be very careful in this segment because Laura and I like to break down your answer, and we're not allowed to do that. The game goes for too long if we do that. So we just have to accept your answer and move on, and we're not good at that either. We're going to do our very best, though. You ready to play this or that?
Perfect. I'm ready.
Let's give it a crack. You've already answered one of them for me, but this or that for you today, talent or opportunity?
Oof, opportunity.
You were ready to take both then, weren't you?
Yeah, I had to think about it
Don't
for a second.
encourage him. We don't need any both.
Okay. All right. I think I know this one, but carry on or checked luggage?
Oh, carry on. Always.
Training or game day?
That's a good one. Training.
Data or instinct?
Instinct.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Can you even have a pet with your life?
No, I want a dog desperately, but it's not particularly conducive for that.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Sorry, we digress. Sorry, Laura, I'm back. Okay, impact or improvement?
Improvement. Fall in love with getting better.
And last one, being the player or building the player?
Building the player, more so because that's my opportunity to impact guys now. I do miss competing, and I do miss the camaraderie.
Love it. Joe, you've just survived this or that on Almost Pro. Thank you.
Good ones, by the way.
This has been such an insightful conversation and a great reminder of how different paths and possibilities exist within sport. Joe, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story with our listeners.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Doing everything right can open doors in ways we don't always expect and often leads to opportunities that go far beyond the original goal. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're following Almost Pro and share it with someone who would get great value from it. And if you've got your own Almost Pro story, we would love to hear it. See you next time.